Good evening, everyone. I'm Gaganjeet Singh from WAF, and I welcome you all to today's webinar, Education, Research and Innovation Ecosystem in Europe, by Dr. Katrina Hill and Mr. Pawan K. Sriram. And this is in partner with BMS Institute of Technology and Management in association with WAF. I'm honored to introduce speakers for today's session. We'll start with Dr. Katrina F. Hill, Erasmus Mundus PhD, graduated in 2017. She's from University of Edinburgh, UK, and KTH Stockholm, Sweden. She's currently scientific project manager at University of Barcelona. She's expert in European research grant application and its project management. She's also the president of the Erasmus Mundus Association, and this association, you all know, like it has 18,000 plus members, and it's spread across 194 plus countries. She has studied and lived across 4 countries and 3 continents, and speaks several languages. She has MSc in biomedicine and bioinformatics from University of Barcelona, and she has also did research exchange in University of Buenos Aires, Argentina, and National Center for Biological Sciences, Bangalore, India. Right. And second speaker for today's session is Mr. Pawan K. Sriram. He's head of international projects, Digital Norway, and co-founder Kalari Opening Minds. Pawan has 12 years of international experience in project management for innovation and strategic projects in high technology industries. He's an expert and has over 8 years of experience in European research and innovation grant applications and project management. He also has over 10 years of experience working with the European Commission in the capacity of European Union Higher Education Agenda, where he has held many leadership positions like President Erasmus Mundus Association from 2017 to 2019, board member Study in Europe project, co-founder, board member, and co-chair of Erasmus Plus Student and Alumni Alliance. So, Mr. Pawan, we'll start this today's sessions with you. And may I know if you want to share your presentation? You're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
And also you guys can see my presentation, I guess?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Right. Thank you so much, Gagan, for the introduction. And this time zones really make it very interesting because for some reason I was thinking it's at 4 p.m. today in Norwegian time, but of course it's 4 p.m. Indian time. It's great to see many of you joining in, and also it's great to share this discussion along with Katrina. We've been kind of friends and also former and current president of Erasmus Mundus Association. So it's a great way also to connect over this platform. In today's discussion, we will share our own experiences of how the European research, education and innovation ecosystem is, and how Europe in general has invested in both education and research and innovation specifically. This will give you a bit more deeper understanding of how Europe has evolved in these streams. And also moving forward, Katrina will also explain her own life experiences of how she's adapted this model to her own current work experiences. So I begin with the first slide, just to give a bit more kind of thought process about European Union itself. Because many of, I'm sure in many of India, people still do not understand the difference between European Union, European Commission, that kind of stuff. So European Union is amalgamation of 30 plus countries together. And the idea is here to have a free trade and borderless kind of a mechanism among the European countries. Of course, as you see, some of the key numbers is that it's around 500 million people which exist. There's a lot of focus right now by the European Union on the development. And as you see in even the COVID days, there's a lot of work which is being put into. The most important thing one needs to understand is that Europe consists of several different countries. Of course, most of us might know about Germany, France, UK used to be part of the European Union before, Italy, Spain, etc. But there are several other countries like Slovenia, Slovakia, Croatia, all of them part of European Union. So it's very much like in India, I would say, though India is one nation with several different states, European Union is one continent with several different countries. So with a lot of history and a lot of culture. Moving forward, Europe has predominantly invested a lot in education, and that has been one of the pivotal part of European Commission. And they introduced this concept of Erasmus in 1987. So this was almost like 33 years ago. And the idea was like, how can they build on this concept of European integration? How can they really break this divide between the people, between all the stereotypes which exist? How can mobility play an important role in making Europe as an integrated continent? Because it has several different nationalities, several different languages, several different challenges. So how could this Europeanness could be brought about? So they thought that education is one of the key instruments for doing this. And in 1987, they had a reformation in the education policy. And one of the things which, as I said, they introduced was this Erasmus program. And then they kept adding several different aspects during the process. And you can see that they introduced youth, they introduced the cooperation beyond or outside of the European Union. They started increasing the school education, vocational education. They also incorporated the whole voluntary thing within this particular scheme, and they brought into the aspects of adult education here. And then they started this program, which I presented to you a couple of weeks ago, of Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters or Erasmus Mundus Joint Doctorate, or now even Marie Curie Scholarship. So all these things are coming into place where they felt that Europe needs to be more inclusive and open to the world. And today we are at the stage where we're finishing 33 years of Erasmus program. And also there's a new budget framework, which I will talk about. So these are some of the key numbers, and you can see the investment, what it really means to the Europe. So this is very much trying to bring people together, and over 9 million of people, probably now it's over 10 or 12 in the last 3 years, if I count the numbers, people have benefited through this mobility program. So why this exchange is such an important, or why this aspect of education is very important, is that they really help people to get a different perspective. They develop this open-mindedness, help people to embrace diversity, and also have a better intercultural understanding in which you become much more open to different thought process, different opinions. But at the same time, also working on enhancing and improving European education system and trying to bring that at a global level, because Europe has some top-notch universities and education and also research, of course, but somehow it's not necessarily promoted as much as what you might see in US and UK, etc. So right now, as you see, there's a huge amount of money, 30 billion euros nearly, going to be invested in the next 7 years of framework program, which will be very much on education itself. Within this, for those of you who have just been graduating or who have actually graduated and have some work experience, this is a great opportunity to apply for something called Erasmus Mundus master's program. If you haven't understood that concept, please check out the last webinar what we held with VAV and BMSIT. And I was one of the recipient of this Erasmus Mundus scholarship way back in 2008. And as Gagan was introducing, we are an organization which has over 18,000 members, but there are over 25,000 students from all over the world who have received the benefit of this fully funded scholarship since 2004. And Katharina herself was an Erasmus Mundus joint PhD awardee, and then now it's part of Marie Curie, and she can explain more when she talks about those experiences. So all in all, what I'm trying to say is that education is very critical part of Europe, and this will continue even with this new budget framework program. So there will be tons of opportunity for people from India to gain education for free in Europe. Not only free, but also get allowance for doing this studies. And that's a component of the education, but Europe also invests a lot in the research and innovation per se itself. And right now we are running in the Framework Program 10, more or less, you can say. So the Framework Program 1 started in 1984. So that was the first time when all this idea of research and innovation started in Europe. And as you see, of course, every country was doing its own research and innovation, but everyone coming together happened in 1984. And from a budget of 3 billion euro, it's moved to nearly now 100 billion euros. That's something significant. And now, having been working on these projects myself in my current role, I see that this is very essential. Like, simple example is during the COVID days, I can see that there is a very holistic, integrated approach across the boundaries, across the countries to produce solutions, rather than trying to fight out in your own silos, rather to try to, um, bring about this change just as an individual nation. The idea here is to come together and combat challenges together. So again, this framework program of research and innovation is called Horizon Europe. So those of you, I don't know how many here are looking for PhDs or some research exchange, etc. So you can actually work or get an opportunity to do a PhD or postdoc, etc. through these funding schemes. And those of the institutions who are now related also to Huawei, if you're interested to collaborate with other universities across Europe in the project, or companies or whatnot, this is also a very good mechanism to be part of it. And within this Horizon Europe, the very much focus for the next 7 years is on these 5 key missions. European Commission believes that these are the pressing societal challenges for the next 7-8 years. So they really want to invest a lot of research and innovation going forward in cancer, soil and health, climate change, smart cities, and oceans itself. So those of you who are planning for your career and thinking, oh, what I should do, what I should think about, especially if I'm considering to study in Europe, these are some of the key areas which you can also relate to and align your subjects. Because one thing is, when we study back in home, we are very much confined to a specific subject, right? But you need to think about already these subjects are no more standard subjects, but it becomes very interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary as you come for your masters or furthermore. Or if you even work in industries, it's no more just a mechanical engineering topic which you'll be dealing with. You have to also bring in aspects of human collaboration into the mechanical design, etc. So it becomes very important that you start focusing very much on interdisciplinarity. And some of the things which you also can learn here specifically is that, as I was talking, the pillar 1 is very much focused on, if you're very interested in PhD, postdoc research, there are grants which pay you like a salary if you get into one of these. But the pillar 2 is actually very important for those of you making some career decisions on what kind of potential careers which might exist in Europe in general. So these are some of the key areas like health, digital industry, whatever, space, food, so inclusive society, and yeah. So you need to really plan your studies thinking that this is something which will also lead to a lot of job opportunities moving forward. The rest of them are more relevant to industries and universities, so I would not really go deeper into this particular aspect. So with this, I will give the floor to Katrina, who can explain from first hand her own experiences and her own journey, and also the perspective of how this whole ecosystem fits in today, and her own reflections about this moving forward.
Thanks a lot, Pawan. So yeah, I would like to just move on a little bit and share my own experiences. If there are any questions or comments you would like to make, I'm more than happy to pick them up. I've already seen a question, so feel free to keep commenting. I'll either answer on the go or do that later on. But to actually, yeah, what I would like to address in the coming minutes are those 3 points which are around how to make use of available offers. Yeah, how do you get there? How can you get to study in Europe? How can you get to educate yourself? How are you going to make a career, and how does it work? I'd like to shed a little bit of light there. And yeah, to conclude, I think it's also really important to share a couple of my thoughts, even though I am European. I have lived in a number of places and been in touch with many people from all over the world. So what does it actually mean to be European? Is it like it is in a movie, or what does it mean? How does it work? And then how can you, by knowing a little bit better, also maybe not fit in better into Europe, but make that way more approachable? If you just move on one slide per one. Thank you. So me today, I just really wanted to share a couple of thoughts. I'm a scientific project manager. What does it mean? I am a scientist. I have been trained as such. I obtained my PhD in part of an Erasmus Mundus grant. But now I then realized as well that you do not only have to be a scientist, but to do good science, it's also very much important to facilitate, to think on an interdisciplinary level, to communicate, also to motivate others, to keep them engaged with their colleagues, and to make that interdisciplinary work. So overall, I am a leader as well. I'm a manager, and that's kind of my professional me at the moment. If we move on again. I wanted to share just a couple of details about my education, because that's one of the questions I ask myself very often when I was not yet in the position I am at now. How do you get there, and what is the correct way? Said that, I want to say there is no right and wrong way. There only is a way, and you have to move forward. So I started my educational career with a bachelor degree in Germany. I am German. That's where I was born and grew up. But very early on, I realized there's a whole world out there. So I went to Argentina for a 3-month exchange in an exchange. I did some research work there and graduated from my bachelor's degree. So you might think, how did she do this? At that level, I was lucky enough to get a travel grant to support the flight tickets to actually be able to leave the country and to go, in that case, already to a different continent. So that's one option. It wasn't too difficult, but yeah, I had to know that it existed. After my bachelor's, I did a master's degree. Well, you see there's 2 on the slide. So I studied biomedicine first and then bioinformatics. One of the reasons was, since I changed country, the length of the program changed as well. So in Germany, I would have done a 2-year degree. In Spain, those were 1-year masters. So I ended up doing 2 different ones. But also on a personal note, I think I really understood that what I was much more fascinated about, not just the human body, but really how to analyze it, how to understand it, how to make sense of the numbers. And then my analytical mindset came into play again. And I moved a little bit more towards the bioinformatics field. Back then, I really wasn't sure how this is all going to work. But I did feel all the curiosity and scientific interest to say, let's do this PhD. Let's see if I find something. But what I already knew at that stage was I wanted to do research, but I also wanted to educate myself. And I think this is a value which is very much reflected in a lot of European programs. Might they be at master level, at PhD level, or at any other level. You come with your ideas and you make things happen. So I was lucky enough to be awarded an Erasmus Mundus scholarship, got to study at different universities, but also got to learn things which are, for example, public speaking. I got to practice many things and skills that I can now call my skills, which might not be that obvious. But yeah, all this combined with the research that I did, and I then graduated. I think it was mentioned before, I did spend some time in India as well, which was a great experience too. So I have all that input, which at the end of the day makes me the person I am. And that's also why people, in a sense, are looking forward to work with me as well and have me on the team. So if we move on to the next slide, I'm gonna move on with my work experience, because this somehow did actually start after I had finished my PhD. I did a lot of other things alongside my education, but the real work experience, as they call it here in Europe or probably all over the world, was afterwards. So I did about 6 months of research, continuing from my PhD topic a little bit. And this was part of the Human Brain Project, which is a flagship project which was funded by the European Commission a number of years ago. It was one of the first really, really big projects. So there was a lot of money being put into one topic for many, many researchers to work on understanding the brain. So I was part of one research group, and that research group was part of one team, and that one team was looking at one aspect of the brain. And this is how I got introduced as an actual researcher into one of the first European research projects. I'll pick that up later on again. But after that, I moved on and became an innovation consultant. And this is where the innovation part as well comes into play. Pavan has mentioned that the Commission is very much interested in doing research, but they also understand that if they are funding research, they would like to see the research output to maybe be brought one step further. So now that we have that insight, what are we going to do with it? Can we share it with a wider society? Can we make a product? Is this helpful to people? And I mean, this ranges very widely. So in that position itself, I was supporting research or innovation teams, already kind of small, medium-sized enterprises, startups with ideas on thinking about how to commercialize their ideas. But to commercialize, you also have to know if whatever your idea is working, or is it actually feasible? Are people going to buy it? What is on offer? What is there? So some of the grants that are available from the European Commission as well would only give you support to verify that your idea is actually working, which it's only that much money, but I think it's a very, very important step to take, and something to keep in mind if you have ideas and if you are as well interested in that thought process. Maybe you understand the science, you like understanding concepts, but you're rather interested in making them a reality. So you could really fit in somewhere where they need the person that makes the things happen. Maybe not makes the things, because that's the engineer who can then actually make what needs to be done, but you can really fit in very nicely and help on that way. So I was involved with a number of very different projects. One of them was about e-bikes. The other one, they were developing codes for X-ray rooms in hospitals. So my skills that I really needed were more the analysis and the understanding on how to make an idea a reality, not that much the science. So this, I think, is also really one of the other points to keep in mind. And if you think of moving somewhere else, not just a different place, but also maybe a different area of interest or a different field of education, there is always a way. I put it at the bottom of this slide. It's the way that counts, and you should never stop moving. And that also goes along with really believing in where you want to get. And I think that innovation consultant role really brought me to the position where I am at the moment, where I call myself a scientific project manager. I think, Pavan, if you move on one slide. Yeah, well, move on another one. This is really how I made it work to move from something very much research oriented to the innovation consultant. It wasn't a straightforward process, and it wasn't that obvious, but the fact that I really knew that I wanted this made it happen. So I did self-employ myself. I was working as a freelancer for some time, and that really allowed me to take that step and to bridge the gap between those areas, which somehow still seem to be not too linked, even though they really are. So moving on one more slide, I think what I wanted to leave you as a message as well is really that it's very important to put your skills into perspective. And this might seem obvious if you read it, but it's not actually that obvious if you are sitting behind it. So I had done a PhD, I was a researcher myself, and I wanted to move into something which was more managerial, more supportive, more helping and supporting others. So it really comes down to you thinking about what have you learned and how can you tell someone what you have learned and what that actually does to you as a person. So taking it to an application for a master's program, you have studied a bachelor's degree, maybe you have a little bit of work experience, and you have studied engineering. Now you want to move into a master's, which is not engineering focused. So you will have to think about what are all these things that I have learned. So I wrote down on that slide, I was a scientist. That was my label. I had a PhD at that time, or I had about finished it. But what does it actually bring me? It gives me analytical skills and a way of thinking in an analytical manner. And that's actually a skill which is very much needed in any area you want to work in. The same comes to basically experience in leadership and management. If you put it in other words, that makes me a very good planner. It means that people can rely on me. It means that if I say I'm going to deliver, I will deliver, and so on and so forth. So the communicator part is also something that allows me as a person to be very interdisciplinary. I listen, I like to make people understand each other, and so on and so forth. I do motivate people. That also makes me a good team player. So it really comes to the point where you need to be very clear in your communication and think about somehow also what does the reader or your future employer or your future university want to read, what do they need to read to see that you fit in the job or in the position or in the role. And I think that's the hardest part in sending an application to a program, to a scholarship, or to an actual employer in the future. And with this being said, let me share a couple of thoughts as well on what it actually means, or what were these jobs that I was doing after having completed my, my education. If you move on one more. As an innovation consultant, it's a very fancy word in a sense, but I'll actually do that exercise myself and break down the concept or the word for you towards understanding what I was doing. I as previously shared a little bit, I was helping people with ideas to explain those ideas, to then potentially obtain funding to prove that those ideas are working. What do employers need to hire someone as an innovation consultant? Higher education is desired. So if you have educated yourself, if you have studied, that does give some certain certainty that you have been exposed to a large number of situations, you have been confronted with logical challenges, and you were able to solve them. If that is in area A, B, or C, it doesn't really matter that much. It's really the ability to show that you have been able to work with others, to solve problems, and so on. As an innovation consultant, I was also in direct contact with clients. That was very nice for me as well. It's a very engaging job. It really makes you work together, even sometimes makes you feel part of a team because you really want to achieve something. And that something is usually for the better good as well. Being a little bit self-perfectionist is something that really helps, because that's when you get to those outstanding results, and all these kind of situations are very competitive. So you need to do your best, but you should be doing that best in a very reflective manner. And I think that's also really when it comes to a point that I will touch upon later on. You don't have to do this by yourself, because the first time you do something that you haven't done before, it's always the hardest. And there are many more people that have been confronting similar situations. So I think that's also one thing, maybe even European or just personal, that I have learned on my way. Ask people questions and you will find someone to help you. So coming back to maybe the European Commission as well, a little bit on in the innovation and how these things are working in Europe, is that Pavan has mentioned that the European Commission really very much highly supports all this innovative efforts, and there is a clear need for people in the area. Similar thing happens with the project management position, so that's on the next slide. Again, higher education background is desired. You are directly involved with up-to-date research, even though you might not be the scientist anymore, and you're bridging gaps between scientists. And yeah, I put on that slide that this can involve pre and post grant award tasks. So what does that mean? the way the system works is that people have an idea. Pavan has shared the 5 areas of main interest of the Commission at the moment. So Europe decides we are going to invest a lot of money in those 5 areas. Researchers make research plans, apply for that money, and if that money is given to them, then that is when the project starts, and that's when my main work as well is kicking in. Is basically carrying out the project. That would be the post-grant award, and the pre-award is all the time that you start preparing, or while you are preparing the project to potentially get funding for it. Again, the Commission supports research highly, and it's clear there is a clear need for people in that area as well. So moving on, I just wanted to give you a really small snippet of what I do at the moment on a daily basis. And these are basically 2 examples of such European funded projects. I have a scientific background. I studied biomedical sciences. So that is basically doing biology using a computer. In the bioinformatics field, it has a lot of big data analysis. You're trying to make sense of images, of personal data, of medical health records, and so on and so forth. The project I was first hired for is called You Can Share. And what the researchers are trying to do is to build a platform with images of the heart from many different people across the whole world. And the idea then, first of all, is to put all that information into one place, to make it findable, accessible, and approachable, usable as well. And once it's there, the project partners really are doing analysis on the data. They are trying to show how this data can be used and ultimately how it can help a patient in a hospital to be cured more easily, to also be diagnosed faster, to then find the proper treatment, and so on and so forth. So it's a very complex thing itself. Those are the type of European projects that the Commission usually funds. They want outstanding ideas with innovative solutions, and that's what they invest money for, to good teams of researchers to then find approaches on how to tackle those challenges. As a second example, that's on the next slide, this is a project that I was actually involved in the writing process. So I was talking to the researchers about their ideas. We wrote down the plan of the 4 years on how this would then be happening. And it's a very interesting topic as well. The thing they have in common, those 2 projects, is the data. So it's always medical data, it's always patients, it's always linked to a medical need or to some sort of how can we then help patients, how can we treat them better. And in the Early Cause project, the content itself is about early life stress and how that influences children. So newborns, babies, but also how is stress from a mother possibly affecting a child? How does it work? This is a very complex task. What is very interesting on my end as well, this does not only involve humans, but also animals. So we're doing a lot of research as such. And the researchers in that case need to really talk to each other to understand, to exchange, and to make the best progress possible. And I think this is really very inspiring to see how it doesn't really matter where you enter the game. If you're there, you will then be able to get in touch with very many different people in many areas and with a lot of different expertise. And that also allows you to learn really on a daily basis almost. I think we're going to move on one more. Yes, so this, I wanted to add a little bit about my current role as the president of the Erasmus Mundus Association. And I think that's also a great place where I was able to learn many of the skills that I'm using in my work life. Thanks to Pavan as well, who's been the president before myself, and all the exchanges we had. What is Erasmus Mundus Association, EMMA, that's we call ourselves? We are enabling, well, we are student and alumni association. We have been funded by the European Commission a number of years ago. We are now a registered NGO in Belgium, And what we really aim for is building international networks in Europe, but also around the world. As mentioned before, all our members are from all over the world. What they all have in common is that they have studied a degree in Europe. They have been living in 2 or 3 countries at least. They have made friends. And I think one of the parts we're really good at is to connect like-minded people. And it keeps surprising me until today. You might meet someone you haven't ever seen before, and after 5 minutes, you just feel like you understand each other. And this is very, very valuable. Even though sometimes we think, oh, why do I need to go and network? How does this help me? Why is it interesting to know that that other person also has studied in Europe? Why do I need this? I mean, I'm myself, I need to fight for it. I need to get there. If I want to go study in Europe, I will have to do it myself. I will have to apply for it myself, and so on and so forth. But this mutual exchange and support really does make a very, very big difference. So if we move on one more slide, I think I wanted to reflect a little bit on how did all this education, how did the fact that I have worked, or I am working between science and management, with scientists, but also with universities, with the European Commission, how did this make me maybe a little bit of another person compared to 10 years ago? So I would today consider myself as someone who connects people. I am a public speaker, I'm motivated, and I do things. So it's always easy to say that you do stuff, but actually going and getting there and getting it done, it does make a difference. But it also, if you then actually start doing things, shows you how far you can get. The fact that I'm international and intercultural really just helps to support this whole picture and the whole kind of pack, and also just allowed me to be more confident as a person, having been confronted with so many situations, expected or unexpectedly, but they do make something with you. So moving on one more, I think this is really the one where I wanted to reflect a little bit on why Europe, or would this have happened in another place as well? I think Pawan would probably be the one who can reflect a little bit better on this, but what I really experience is that what we encounter here is a very, very supportive environment. I have never been questioned. Well, I have been questioned, but really in a manner to support me and to allow me to make the best me possible. So I would say that I today feel very connected. I feel very encouraged and motivated, but also respected and incentivized, in the sense that I know that there are a lot of options. I understand that it's sometimes very challenging to find them, but that's what your networks are for. And once you have found them, use those networks to then actually take that step. And if the first time it doesn't work, think about why it might not have worked. Reach out to more people and try it again. Because where there is a will, there is a way. Sometimes this is a very harsh phrase to say as well, but I have made the experience in many occasions that this is the way it goes. I don't think my way was the way I expected it to be, but what I do know is that I'm happy about where I got at the moment, and I think that's really a key factor as well. If I'm not mistaken, there is one more slide or two. So yeah, I think I looked a little bit at the title again of today's session. So really use education to link your own ideas as well and your own path, depending on where you're at the moment, to research and innovation. And in that sense, if you want to, you really can become part of an ecosystem in Europe, which opens many, many doors, which gives you lots and lots of opportunities. And it has a lot of people that are more than happy to give you a hand if you need it. And with this, I think the next one really only, again, underlines this. Why Europe, why not? I think having people, not just in Europe, but across the world helps a lot. Feeling at home where your people are, wherever they are from, whichever color or ethnicity or thoughts or ideas they have, it really, really makes you, opens the doors. And if you think, how can I get there? I'm in a different place at the moment. we have internet, we have lots and lots of ways of just speaking to someone. Ask your neighbor, because sometimes we don't speak to the people we have closest around us because we think that they cannot help us, but they might know someone who knows someone. And if not, feel free to reach out to me directly as well. I'm not sure if we're going to share those slides, but the next one has my contact details. And I am more than happy to have a chat or to just exchange a little bit. And I think there were a couple of questions now. So maybe between Pavan and I, we can pick those up. And
yeah, means thank you, Katharina. And I just want to like to add upon to the audiences that this was just more about giving you guys insights into what are the possibilities and also touch upon some of the words. I'm sure many of you will be wondering, was this Erasmus, was this Horizon 2020, was this Horizon Europe? So just to give you a quick summary, these are the different mechanisms in which European Commission helps people within Europe and outside of Europe. So as Katharina ended, it's very important that you do your own self-reflection, especially when you're considering to study abroad or work abroad or have some kind of a mobility experiences. It is very critical to have this awareness. This really helps you to make a solid application, and hopefully you will also experience the journeys which Katharina has undergone or I have undergone, or maybe tons of many other people who have undergone today within Europe. Yeah, thank you.
thank you.
So let's move towards the Q&A session. We have a good number of questions over here, and I have some questions which were taken during the registration part as well. So we'll be picking up that questions too. There's a question from Sri Vatsa. Hi, could you please tell the academic and European language qualifications, GRE scores, for increasing our chances to get into top EU universities for MS, PhD, integrated or PhD in physics? What are the skills certificates we can obtain in GAD undergrad to boost our CV? Or is there any R&D and work opportunities in European Union after education? It's more about what are the language qualifications you're looking for, and whether they have to be prepared with some R&D or any research before they have to apply for PhD in Europe.
Okay, I can from a very Indian perspective, having done that before, and then Katharina can add on what it is within the university sector right now. I think just to answer this particular question, it's very important that you, as Katharina very, very well explained in her slides, it's important to have this reflection in general. It's not just about having these certifications or having these GPA or having a particular score. It's holistically, are you passionate about that particular subject? Are you very keenly interested in that particular subject? This becomes very important. And when you have this kind of a thinking, which is very out loud and clear, it's very easy to plan. And generally the requirements in Europe is much, much less compared to US or UK in terms of all these language requirements. Of course, it depends, as we share in our slides. Europe consists of many different countries, which means many different languages. English used to be spoken as one of the major language, probably it will still continue. But one needs to understand that when you're going to a specific country, if you want to also have career after that, either within that country or some other country, then language becomes an essential part. It does really help, or probably instead of applying for 100 jobs, you might certainly start applying for 1,000 jobs if you have also the language skills. And I don't think this is a barrier. I think learning a language is a real and important skill, which will really help you to grow better and have all kind of opportunities moving forward. Katharina, you want to add something on that?
I think the summary really is, if you need the paper to be admitted to the program, you will need the paper. Try to do a good job, but it will not be a criteria to not give you the position or the scholarship, even if you submit 2 weeks later or something. In that sense, Europe is very flexible, and I think that I can speak for all the countries almost.
There's a question from Hindu. How can a BTech mechanical graduate go for a higher education in Europe? what is the first step he or she can take to make up his career in Europe, and suggest some higher educational platforms you can apply to. So maybe Pawan, you can understand the question of like the Indian students, like how to take up opportunities right after BTech.
I think I think here I would like to give a bit more self-reflection. For me, when I applied to go abroad, it was a need. It became a necessity because we had just finished, or we were in the process of building a house. And then for me, it was monetary was kind of a more important thing rather than, of course, the passion was there, but I was not necessarily well thought through. Like what Katrina showed in her slides, I didn't really reflect at that given point of time. If I have to go back in my past, and those are the things which if I could undo, I would like to undo, because I think I've understood a lot about what I've driven by, what's my passion. Probably I would have chosen the subjects and interests based on my passion. I think I would like to reiterate this a lot to the Indian students, is that it's very important that you choose not based on having a job which pays you, but rather choose a path in which you enjoy, but at the same time you also get salary. If you don't do that, it would be very difficult. So being much more specific to as for giving a specific answer to this, is that there are plenty of platforms, as Katrina also highlighted, like Erasmus Mundus, if you want to study through free scholarship for your master's, or if you want to study in Norway, which is education free for master's. If you want to study in Germany, several public universities have free. Several other countries within Europe has either free or minimum tuition fee, or depends on the countries you have. So pick the subject based on your passion, and then everything falls into place. So that is something which I want to say more than, and then use the internet. I found Erasmus Mundus way back in 2008 through internet. That was kind of infancy stage of internet. Today, the information is abundance. So please make use of that. And also, as Katrina advised, talk to people, reach out to us. You'll always find a way if you want to really fulfill your dream.
Right. So, like talking about this passion, and all, I just want to ask Katrina, like, because you mentioned that you're a speaker, you're a motivator also. So, what would you like to add in this? There are many people, those who realize after masters that they have to go for research, because many of them during their college life, they are not actually aware of what research is, basically. They always have their, they are inclined towards jobs or having something of their own. By the time they end up their masters, they realize, okay, there's some scope in research. So how would you take this question?
I would also just give a very honest disclaimer here. Doing a PhD is a study, but it's also work. So I would personally not advise to do a self-funded PhD.
Right.
It really means you're not gonna become rich doing a PhD, but you're contributing to research, you're contributing to university's prestige, to your supervisor's publication record, you do contribute. And I think that should be rewarded with the sufficient amount to be able to pay your rent and to pay your food and to maybe go see your parents once a year. So said that, I was looking for funded PhD programs, but what was even more important for me was the fact that I wanted to educate myself. I wanted to be able to see different cultures. I wanted to be able to grow as a person. And yes, I obviously was very fascinated about the science context, but if you are a student and you think of moving into research, you will not know what it is like. But the one thing and piece of advice I want to give you is you need to be fascinated about the topic you think of working on. If you are fascinated telling your parents, your friends, your colleagues, anybody about the project you will be dealing with, and you kind of feel like this is exciting, then you're doing the right thing. If you only do it to force yourself into then having a title or a PhD, or you think that this is the way to earn more money, don't do it. Then go and earn money. Because there are also ways to directly earn more money than doing a PhD. I don't know if that answers your question though.
No, exactly. Like I remember, like in MBA second year, I was planning to have this PhD, and then this starting part is like you start with literature review and all. So I was like, okay, that's it. Right? Until unless you're actually into that topic, you're really passionate about it. I don't think so. Even you can start with this literature. You have to read a lot. You have to research a lot, basically. Then you have to come up with your own.
I mean, there will be times where you just don't want to move on. That is also part of it.
Exactly.
But what I never like, yeah, there were weeks where you're just kind of fed up with it, but you will never lose that kind of, or I was lucky enough to never have lost that moment of like sparkle or whatever. If somebody you haven't even met asks you, so what do you do? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm researching on the brain and I'm trying to understand Parkinson's disease. And I still feel very excited about it, even though I wouldn't want to do it anymore. But, and again, how are you getting a position in Europe to study? You will be able to reflect in your letter that this is what you want. And people looking for candidates will know what they look for. So there is fewer and fewer programs in Europe in education where the where the universities are looking for geniuses. They want honest people, they want motivation, they want team players, they want to be able to give you an environment where you grow and you educate yourself. It's a very different concept, and it's also a bit of a struggle. It's also harder to mark if you then think of, why does this person have a better grade and why does this person have like more success? It's not measurable that much. But if you achieve the message, if you get the right message across, you will be able to get into a position where you can study or where you can work. And that's another point I wanted to just quickly add. It doesn't mean that you have to do a PhD straight away after your master's. You can go work for 2 years. You can even go work for 10 years, and then you can go back to a PhD program. And Pawan, you might know better, but all these research environments are that open. If you are able to convince them that this is the right step for you, you will be given the opportunity.
Right. So let's move on to next question. So there's this question from Eden Thor. So I'll be asking if there'll be some sort of support in proceeding my love in philosophy, archaeology. I would like to study it in near future unless my CV qualifies for the standards therein, especially for the Union universities. So like maybe the question is towards the support of his passion for philosophy, archaeology, and all. So how can you guide him?
The thing is, I think it comes back to the same thing. We tend to repeat the same answers because if you have a clarity of what you want to do, and if, as Katrina said, if you're fascinated by that particular subject, and if you have passion towards it, there's abundance of subjects, abundance of universities in which you can actually do your particular studies. So in short, to answer that question, it's a yes, and probably you'll even end up getting scholarship. And as Katrina said, means I've driven by a very competitive, I grew up in India, I'm from Bangalore, and I still see that even in today, because I see the education system has not necessarily evolved as much as I would have liked it to see, but it's very much competition driven. It's very much marks based. It's very much memory based. Even in engineering, it's the same. Medicine is the same. So what you'll see different in Europe is driven by this kind of a passion to bring about the change. It's very much driven by what, as like being educated here, you can give back to the society. So in that context, it doesn't matter what subject area you are. I see that the master's program or education in general is very, very interdisciplinary in Europe. So there is definitely a possibility. You just have to look for it through the specific countries who stand out in philosophy and archaeology within Europe. So then you have to just find your way to get there.
Right. So we are left with this last question. How to apply for Erasmus Mundus scholarship, and can you explain why Europe is more favorable than other countries? So I think like we can take both of your like answers and then wind up this session. Like, so why do you think like European countries are more favorable like over other countries? That's a question from attendee. Like, I can't help it.
You want to start or you want me to start?
Go ahead, Katrina.
I think what I have also seen traveling across many other countries, I'm not saying Europe is the only solution, but I do feel that in Europe, you will be very likely encountering very supportive people in any area and in any country. And the education system as such is very open-minded. And I think it really focuses on allowing people to develop the personality and the person they are. And with that in mind, this really is what allows you to grow in the future and to go on your own endeavors as part of a big company, as part of a small company in Europe, back in India, or back in, I don't know, somewhere else in the US. Maybe you want to go to the US eventually. That's your dream, but it's not affordable to study there. So why not take an intermediate step and have a think about, studying in Europe or studying somewhere else, or coming to Europe to work for a year. I know there are certain countries where you can get quite easily accessible visas to really just come and explore for a bit, do simple jobs and see if this is an environment you would want to live in, and then start to study or then find a job. And I think that why Europe, because well, it's a nice place as well. You have sunshine, you have mountains, there's summer, there's winter. Food is different, but it's also different in every country. I think I can't say much more to that though. But the application, Pawan, you can cover the how to apply for a scholarship then.
Yeah, the thing is, there's a portal, Erasmus Mundus Scholarship. We can also send it through WOW, and then you guys can share it with all the attendees. The thing with regards to Europe, yes, I don't have why Europe as an answer, because for me, I lived in US, I lived in several European countries. Something which I cherish is having this personal growth. And I think for me, Europe has given this kind of, it's changed my perspective about life. It's changed my perspective about who I am as a person. And that is something very much more dear to me. It's taught me that what success really means. For me, it's success doesn't necessarily, or it has nothing to do with having a house or a car or having a luxurious job. It's more about my personal experiences. And I think this is a self-reflection, a journey which I felt living in Europe, you can get much more compared to US, where it is very similar system to UK, US, or even in India, where you're driven by a success which you attach to materialistic thing. For me, I have so much time to do tons of things other than my own job. I have such a relaxed environment at my work. And in general, as Katrina said, it's such a cozy continent with several different nationalities and so many variety of things. It requires, I don't know, several timelines to explore this kind of aspects. And I think for me, the foundation of the way the education system is built, which is not driven by making profit, but rather educating people, ensuring inclusivity, stands out. And I think that is very difficult to replace and find in many different parts of the world. And for me, I'm a big advocate of European Union and this concept of mobility. And this is what I would like to see in many countries moving forward. And why would a continent pay from their own taxpayers' money to educate you for free? This question still I don't have an answer, but I was one of the recipient of that. And I think when you have an opportunity, you should just make use of it. Come explore yourself. If you don't like it, there's always, world is much more bigger. So at least give it a try. That's what I would like to say.
Oh, that's a great line actually. Like obviously, no country will take out amount from the taxpayers, earn money and give you a chance to study in their own country and do research. So so people those are asking questions, why is it favorable? I guess we have given the best answer as of now. Right. So I think we don't have any questions after this. With your permission, I would like to conclude this session. Before going, just want you to take 2 minutes and conclude. Like if you have any closing remarks. So what like before going, can you guide students like people those are in their final years or they are actually looking after how to actually there was a question also like how to start my career. I really don't know like if it is about research also like how to start, even though like we know that there's one passion is required. Then if you can just guide, like you can take 2 minutes and then we can close the session. We can start from Katrina, followed by Pawan, and we can conclude the session.
Pavan already made a really, really nice conclusion earlier, but I'll try again. No, I think, first of all, you're at the right place. You have already started to think about this in whatever manner. Maybe you just came across the link and you joined this webinar. If that's the case, I hope that Pavan and I could inspire you a little bit, and especially in the sense of showing you that there are many opportunities. It will not be easy to find them, but as Pavan said, there is internet, and make it as simple as this. Study archaeology in Europe, and you will see what happens. And you will end up somewhere. You will find a university, you will find a master's program. I found my PhD program not as an Erasmus Mundus program, but on a page of a university. And I was looking at it and I said, oh, this is interesting. Oh, well, then I was like, oh, I need to apply and send all these documents. Oh, not going to do this, too much work. Somehow I did. I'm very happy that I did. And I think just give it a try, don't doubt it, and reach out to people. As I said, I'm more than happy to have a chat, because often you think that, or I think as well, often people think if we ask others for help, we are a burden. But very often, if we approach someone, we also give that someone a lot back. Is it a break from work? Is it a new inspirational moment? Is it just, oh yeah, well, let's remember that good food that we had, or that person that I met in this city, or whatever it is. It is very much appreciated by, I hardly know anybody who would say no to a 10-minute phone call. So just really pick up the phone or send a message. If you don't get an answer, send it once more and you'll find your way.
Right. So let's leave to Pawan now.
As Katrina said, please do your research before you're trying to reach people. Even though she says it's 10 minutes, it's important that you made that effort to look by yourself. And then, of course, you'll reach out to people and people are very happy to help. But if you don't do any research and then asking a lot of questions which you can find in internet, it could be a bit tricky sometimes to get a response immediately. But for me, a message as a fellow Indian, I would like to say is that please try to run behind your dream, have this passion, and also have patience. It's very important that it's okay that things don't function as it is. It's okay to fail. It's okay to not be successful the way the society wants you to be. It's very important to have this self-reflection and just allow yourself to grow, allow yourself to reflect carefully and build a world around you which is important for you and not important for the society. And that's something is very important. And this is my message at large for the people.
So thank you so much. Thank you both of you. It was a wonderful presentation, and you literally gave a lot of insights towards what is the environment, what about this education, research, and how you can actually take it in Europe. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you, Pawan. So with your permission, I would like to conclude this session. Right. Thank you, participants. You'll be redirected to one feedback link after this. After this session, please do help us improve with your valuable feedback. And we are ending up with this session. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you, Pawan. Thank you for your time.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.
Yeah. Bye-bye.